Without further ado, we head to Fort Collins, Colorado, on the campus of Colorado State University, and bring in the head coach of the Colorado State Rams, Niko Medved. If you have a question for Coach Medved, please, again, raise your hand, hit the button to enter the queue, and then I will call on you at the appropriate time. Coach, Niko, how are you? Great to see you. It's been a while.
Doing great, Jesse. How are things in Colorado Springs?
We're excited to get some basketball going. So let's talk about your Rams here. In 2019, you went 20-12. You got 4 starters returning from a team that today in the preseason media poll was picked to finish 5th in the regular season. Now, many of your players last year, you started a very young lineup. I believe 2 freshmen, 2 sophomores. They're a year older. How much do you look forward to this year, knowing that you had a young team that got a lot of experience under its belt a year ago?
I really love this group. They're a great group to be around. They work really hard, and we have a unique situation, and this is really my 3rd year here at CSU. It's the youngest team we've had, but at the same point in time, we return a lot more experience and guys have played a lot of minutes. So it's pretty unique in that way. And I'm really excited about this group. I'm excited about how hard they're working. I'm excited about how connected they are. So no, it's a really good group, and I'm excited about the trajectory of the program.
Well, let's get those involved from around the Mountain West media footprint. We got our first question of the day coming from Jeff Grammer of the Albuquerque Journal. Jeff?
Coach, how you doing?
Good, Jeff. How are you, man?
I'm good, man. These crazy times. I wouldn't be me if I didn't start off right away with what you guys lost, and that's Niko Carvacho. I'm not so interested in sort of the bigger picture of what he meant to the program, because after so many years, I think we all know that he meant an awful lot to the program. But what does guys like what do the other guys do that Niko created for them that maybe went overlooked? Like David Roddy was a guy that maybe benefited from having another post player. I'm curious what those guys are doing to overcome what Niko created for them.
That's a great question. I mean, I think anytime you lose, a guy like him is all-time leading rebounder in school history and Mountain West history. I mean, obviously his presence on the glass is it's not just something that you replace. You try to make up for it as a team. I think the other thing that Niko did is, obviously he wasn't a great free throw shooter, but he did get fouled a lot. And I think that's one of the things we did well. I think he really helped us get into the bonus. He drew a lot of fouls, and he was obviously a presence that way. But, I think we're going to have a different look this year. I mean, 2 of the young guys that we have, Deshaun Thomas and James Moores, that will fill in Niko's spot. I think they're really talented guys. They're different in their skill sets. And I think, you make up for those things kind of in the overall scheme of your team. And you don't just replace a guy like Niko, but you make up with it, make up for it as a team. And guys like David Roddy, Isaiah Stevens, I can go down the board. I mean, they're just going to have to pick it up and, take their game to the next level. But I think, we don't necessarily reinvent ourselves, but we're just going to be a little bit different team, and maybe we'll have some other strengths. We things maybe we don't do as well without Niko here, but there might be some things that we do better. So I think that's the way we have to look at it. And it's part of college athletics, right? Guys eventually graduate or leave, and it's time for somebody else to step up. But I'm pretty excited about the guys we have, and I think we'll be fine.
I do have one quick follow too, and it's sort of the generic media day question about the poll. You guys are a team that have some people thinking you're going to be better than 5th. Some people still question with Carvacho leaving, maybe how high you can go, but you're right in the middle. I'm curious how you plan to play that to your players now. I mean, they can have their own opinions, I know, but what's your play now when you're picked in the middle of the pack? That doesn't really seem to give you the coach's sweet spot of we're picked too high or we're picked too low. Like, I don't know how you as a coach being picked in the middle.
Jeff, I'll be honest, it's the truth. Like I walked in here today and I hadn't even seen the Mountain West preseason poll until I saw it literally before I came on here. And I know we have to do those things. I really don't pay much attention to it or care. I certainly hope that our guys don't need motivation from where they're picked. And I think we can be, I think we can compete with anybody in our league, but it's going to be a great year in the league. I think there's so many good teams. And the one thing that, is always going to be constant, Jeff, is they have the preseason polls, but you probably know better than anyone being around the league. But when do they ever end up the way that they picked them in the preseason? So and in any year it's like that. But gosh, in this year in particular, with everything going on. And so I'm not terribly concerned about it. And I don't really question our guys' motivation at all. But no, that's a question I know I'm going to get. But honestly, I hadn't even really paid much attention to it.
Thank you, Jeff. Our next question comes from Kevin Lytle of the Fort Collins, Coloradoan.
Hey, Coach. Obviously, Niko was, a big presence, not just on the court, but, his leadership type of stuff. You've talked a lot about, some of the younger guys, especially Isaiah, pretty early last year taking on, kind of leadership qualities. Are you seeing that even more? Are him and David and some of those other guys feeling comfortable as the ones to, step in and say something that needs to be said when needed?
Absolutely. No, I don't think that's been an issue at all. I think that part has happened really organically. And again, we have a really young group, but they're guys that played a lot of minutes, had important roles. And, the two guys too, I think Adam Thistlewood and Kendall Moore, they've been around the block. They've played a lot of games, a lot of minutes. And so I think the chemistry is really good with this group, and they're a really connected group. And so, no, I don't, again, Niko played a big part in a lot of that, but I don't think we've skipped a beat there. I think we've got really good leadership in our program, guys who are about the right things and, understand what we're trying to do and believe in what we're doing. And so I have not felt that yet, but, we haven't played any games. I think every coach would get on here and tell you they're really excited about their team and the season, and we all are. But usually it comes down to, not usually, it always does, you're going to face some adversity, and we all know we're going to face it this year, but it's how you respond to that. How do you grow? And that's when your leadership really gets tested. So I think we're in a great spot, but we'll go find out here pretty quick.
Thank you, Kevin. Again, if you have a question for Coach Medved, you can raise your hand on the lower toolbar of the Zoom screen. And when you ask a question, you can ask a question, then a follow-up question if you so choose. Our next question comes from KRQE and Jared Chester.
Hey, Coach. So you talked about having, a different look this year, and you said you had some strengths. I was wondering, could you elaborate more on that? What really excites you about this team coming in? Their unselfishness, their chemistry, their willingness, I think, to buy into what we're trying to do as a team on both ends. I think, obviously, we were a pretty efficient offensive team last year. We shot the ball well. We shared it pretty well. I think we could put some lineups out there on the floor where we have 5 guys, who can shoot the ball well from 3. I think defensively is where we really need to improve. I think that that's an area where, we're working pretty hard, and guys are becoming more and more connected. And so I feel that it's not anything drastic. I think it's just, younger guys now who've been around the block, and some young guys who are going to get opportunities to play more. I really believe in, and I know we do too, and they just need experience. And I think as that's coming together, I see it coming together in practice every day. And as we get out there and play games, I think this is a team that can be a lot better at the end of the season than we are at the beginning.
Our next question comes from BJ Rains of the Idaho Press Tribune.
Coach, just curious your thoughts, first of all, on the 2-game series and the change in format, obviously with doing the 5 home series, 5 road series, and just what you think about getting some teams twice at home and some teams you won't travel at all, and how that's going to work in kind of a weird year here with what's going on.
Yeah, the whole thing is going to be weird. I think it was a good move by the league. I think that obviously these are unprecedented times, and I think we had to think a little bit outside the box. And obviously, the integrity of your conference season is critical. And I think it is something that we had to put thought into, obviously build in some contingency plans. So it's going to be different. It's going to be different for everyone. If we get so focused on, it's equal, I get this team at home and I don't get, I have to go this team on the road and the other team didn't. If we get caught up in all those things right now, we're going to drive ourselves crazy. And so, the most important thing, in my opinion, is we want to create as many opportunities for our young men to play, and to do that in a safe way.
This
I know
meeting is being recorded.
And so I think it was a good move by the league. And, in some ways it's going to be so different. Our players may really enjoy it, getting to go there and play in a team, in a series like that is something that's different, but in a way, it might be unique and something that we really enjoy. So I'm just looking forward to playing games. So I know we start in 2 weeks here. So whatever that looks like, I'm just excited to get after it.
And Coach, final thing, I covered Boise State, and Derek Alston was named the preseason player of the year today. Just curious, as a opposing coach, what you see in Derek and him obviously deciding to come back for his senior year kind of changed the look of Boise State's team.
Yeah, I mean, he's a terrific player. He's a nightmare to have to scout. He obviously can score the ball on all three levels. I mean, he's so unique, and like I said, he can shoot the three, he can post, he can slash, he's long. He's a guy that can take over a game at any time. And so he's a terrific player. And, I think that's great for the Mountain West to have guys that come back, and it makes the league stronger, makes all the programs better. And I know Boise, looks like they have a terrific team this year. And he's obviously, one of the main pieces of that, but he's a terrific player. And I understand completely why he's a preseason player of the year.
Thank you, BJ. It's time to go to San Diego. Bring in Mark Ziegler of the San Diego Union Tribune.
Hi, Coach. I'm curious, last year San Diego State won this league by a pretty fair amount. I think it was a record amount, and they're picked to win again. Do you think they're the clear favorite, or do you think there's a group of 5-6 teams, Brian Dutcher says there are, that are all in contention, and it's really not that clear cut?
I think it's really, it's maybe a little bit of both there. I think Dutch is, well, first of all, I'd say that, obviously I think San Diego State's the favorite. They're reigning champs. I think they've got a terrific team. They got a terrific culture in their program, and you go on and on and on. So obviously I think it's very fair to have them as a favorite, but I think that Dutch is right. And I think there's a lot of programs out there who feel like they can compete. I know I feel that way. And so I think it's going to be a great year in the league, and, nobody knows what's going to happen. Obviously we try to predict, it never goes that way, but I would anticipate a pretty close race this year. I think you're going to see a lot more parity. I think you're going to see great competition throughout the league. So I think Dutch is right. I think there's a lot of teams out there who can beat anybody on a given night, and really, I think, have a chance to compete, not just for the regular season, but obviously in the Mountain West tournament.
And one other question, you mentioned earlier, you think you're going to be a different team. I wonder if you can elaborate on what do you mean by that? How will you be different? Particularly in the sense that, for example, you guys guard baseline drives kind of a unique way, different than a lot of teams do. Do you change that now without Niko? Are you a different look?
Well, I can't tell you all that, right? I'm just kidding. But I think what I mean is just, from a personnel standpoint. I mean, obviously, you have certain schemes overall that you really like and you believe in, but part of it is you got to look at the players that you have, and you try to put something together that really fits. And so I don't know if I mean in an overall sense, I like a lot of the things that we're doing. I just think we've got some guys that maybe we need to do some things on both ends of the floor. Offensively that really play to their strengths. And we might be a team that might be able to space the floor a little bit better at times than we did last year, with our ability to maybe shoot the ball from all 5 positions at times. And so I think there's some things schematically we can do there. And even that way, like you said, on the defensive end with maybe some of our rotations, some of the things that we do to try to take advantage of the players that we have. And so we've got a lot of young guys, I think, who will play again. Some of those guys will start by coming off the bench, freshmen who've never played in games before, but I think they've got tremendous upside. I think they're really, really talented, and I'm just excited to see how that grows for us. But obviously, we're going to, do what we do. But if I'm making sense, I just think when you're trying to take advantage of your players' strengths, I think sometimes that's going to change some of the things that you do schematically.
Thank you, Mark. Our next question comes from Brent Brigham of the Colorado Springs Gazette.
Yeah, Coach, when you look at what's going on in football, obviously a lot of starts and stops, and you guys will probably deal with that too. Is there anything you do now to physically or mentally prepare your guys for what it's going to be like to be going one day and not the next?
And I'd take out the probably. I think it's inevitable, right? I mean, it's going to happen. And I think what you do is you just be honest. I think our guys have a pretty good feel of what's going on there right now. I think our guys have done a great job of taking this seriously and understanding what we have to do to give ourselves the best opportunity to play. But I think even when you do all that, obviously this COVID-19 thing can strike at any moment. And I think it's just being upfront. It's trying to preemptively talk about, hey, these things happen, here's what you're going to do. But I think every team's going to have to deal with adjustments. They're going to have to deal with disappointments, and you just do the best you can. I just think it's critical that we just keep forging ahead. I think as coaches, administrators, as a league, and really the NCAA in general, we just got to keep forging ahead. And we've got to try to get, obviously, to the starting gate here, get to the finish line, and, have a great season. Even though we know it's probably not going to be equitable, I think it is what it is, and have a conference tournament and have an NCAA tournament and come out of this on the other side, poised to just forge ahead. And so, I think you're just honest with your guys and you be transparent about what's going on, but they all look at the news. They all have their phones. I think they have a pretty good understanding of where we're at.
Okay. And when you look down at Air Force, obviously Joe Scott, was at the program, left for a long time, came back. Can you relate a little bit to that, having been at Colorado State, leaving for 5 years and coming back? And what was that experience like for you?
Oh, absolutely. I think you come back, and I know for me it was, sometimes it was like Groundhog Day. You feel like, man, I never left, and it comes back to you. But you also realize, boy, you're gone for a period of time, and things do change, and there's new people and there's a new energy. And so I think there's a little bit of both of those things. And, I can relate to being back here as an assistant and having to go against Joe's teams, at Denver, in particular. And he's a terrific coach. His teams, they execute, they play tough, hard-nosed basketball. And, I have no doubt, he'll continue to do a terrific job at Air Force, and they're going to be a team to be reckoned.
Thank you, Brent. Our final question today for Coach Medved of the Colorado State Rams will come from John Tito of Hoops HD.
Good afternoon, Coach. Can you hear me?
I can.
Just want to ask about David Roddy. Obviously, any freshman who can start 18 games for a 20-win team has many good pieces to his game. The three-point shooting, frankly, was not one of his best pieces. So as a coach, coming into his sophomore year, do you say, hey, David, take less of them because we had so many other good three-point shooters? Or do you just work with him all fall saying, we're going to make you into a better three-point shooter?
First of all, I think David's going to develop into a terrific three-point shooter. I think it's a combination of both. And I think, even with him last year is, I think it's understanding that, hey, it's love the paint, like the three. And I think it's part of growing. It's expanding his game. It's becoming a better shooter through repetitions, fundamentals, and all those things. But it's also understanding that, he's so effective when he plays in the lane, and whether it's the post or driving it or getting to the offensive glass. And so I think it's just for him being mindful of not just settling. But at the same time, I believe that David's going to be, and I think he's really improved a lot in the offseason as a guy who can make shots. So I have a ton of belief in him. It's just taking the right shots, being mindful of where he has his advantage, and, being a guy who's always on the attack. And as long as he's doing that, David's going to be just fine. But David's a difference maker. He's a very, very difficult matchup because he can score and do so many different things. And so I'm really excited about him, and he's a terrific young man. So I think he's got a chance to take a big jump for us this year. And he's a guy that I think is going to be difficult for other teams to defend.
John, thank you for the question. And Niko, thank you for your time today. We really appreciate you taking time for our media day, and good luck to you in Fort Collins this season.
Appreciate you, Jesse. Thank you.
Absolutely. That's Niko Medved, the head coach of the Colorado State Rams. In a few moments, we will be joined by Isaiah Stevens, the dynamic player for Colorado State that was an all Mountain West pick earlier today in the preseason poll. Isaiah Stevens, just a sophomore. He's the Mountain West Freshman of the Year from last year from Allen, Texas. This is a Colorado State team that once again went 20-12 a year ago, 11-7 in the Mountain West. Returned some really, really good players on the front end of the starting lineup in Kendall Moore, David Roddy, Isaiah Stevens, Adam Thistlewood. Last season, the Rams led the Mountain West with a 46.9 field goal percentage. Without further ado, let's head back up to Colorado State University and bring in the reigning Mountain West Freshman of the Year. He's all grown up now, and now he's a preseason all Mountain West player, Isaiah Stevens. Isaiah, good to see you. How are you?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
Great. if you have a question for Isaiah Stevens, make sure that you raise your virtual hand on the button in the lower toolbar of the Zoom screen. We'll get you in queue. Isaiah, your reaction, number one, to being picked as one of the top players in the Mountain West that was released here today.
It's definitely an honor, blessing. I'm truly grateful that so many people view me as one of the top players in the league, but at the same time, can't get satisfied with things like that. Got to continue to work and push even harder because that just puts a bigger target on my back. So,
our first question for you, Isaiah, will come from the Fort Collins, Coloradoan, and Kevin Lytle.
Hey, Isaiah. I was wondering, first off, almost exactly a year ago, you guys were playing at Duke, obviously one of the best atmospheres in college basketball. This year, obviously, it's going to be a lot different, probably a lot empty arenas. Have you thought about that at all? Kind of what are you expecting, and kind of just the weirdness of playing in empty stadiums?
Yeah, it's definitely going to be different. And there's not too many places in the country that compare to Cameron Indoor, but I feel like we're just really excited to play. We're ready to get everything going and just get the ball rolling. So regardless of whether we have fans, don't have fans, I just feel like we got a team that's just really eager to play.
And then obviously, there are a lot of protocols and stuff that you guys have to follow. But as far as the actual preparation for the season, does it feel like you guys have been restricted at all, or does it feel like you're able to get what you need to done to get ready for the season?
It's definitely different, to be just honest, but I feel like our coaches have done a phenomenal job with just trying to keep everything as easy flowing as possible and as routine as possible. We still come in, we have our practices, we have our weight room sessions. We have to practice and work out with masks on, but outside of that and certain check-ins throughout the day, everything has been pretty much the same. So just keeping that same routine, and it just helps guys continue to find their balance, especially with the new guys on the team.
Thank you, Kevin. Again, if you have a question for Isaiah, raise your hand, and the virtual hand on your Zoom toolbar will get you in queue. Isaiah, last year you led CSU in assists 22 times, and you set a freshman record with 144 over the course of a season. Is that going to be your primary role once again, to try to get everyone involved, or you going to try to take the ball to the rack as much as you can?
I view myself as a playmaker. So when I'm out there playing, I'm not thinking about, oh, I need to go score here, oh, I need to pass a little bit more here. I'm just reading what the defense gives me, and then I'm also just blessed with the ability to just see it at a pretty high level. So I'm a willing passer, but I'm also a guy who understands that if I want my team to be successful, I'm going to have to put the ball in the bucket a little bit as well. So just finding the balance between that, and I feel like that's what makes certain point guards great.
But you do have three other fellow starters that returned to the lineup along with you. This is a team that was young last year, that was allowed to grow. How good can you be with the guys that return, whether it be Roddy, Thistlewood? I mean, this is a young team that really, I think a lot of people are expecting some great things from here in the 2020-2021 season.
Absolutely. Playing with those guys is a ton of fun, to say the least. They make my job easy. They come to work each and every single day, and they're super competitive, and that blends perfectly with me and my personality. But going into the season, I feel like with us returning so many guys who have experience, who played not only just a lot of minutes, but a lot of meaningful minutes and meaningful games, that definitely gives us an advantage in certain situations and in certain areas. So we're going to be excited to continue to build our chemistry and continue to go out there and just perform as a unit.
We have a question for you from the Albuquerque Journal and Jeff Grammer.
Yeah, you've mentioned a couple times about the experience and all these guys coming back. There's things you learn about a league that you would have never known before you were in the league, and so I'm curious what you know now that you didn't a year ago, that you learned from the Mountain West. And you see a team like a San Diego State that ran away with the regular season last year that had two guards, and maybe what you learned from guards like Malachi Flynn and Fegan last year, and sort of what this experience that you keep talking about, how that actually helps going into a year two for you.
Oh, well, the first thing that I learned was that this league has a ton of great guards, has a rich history of a ton of great players that come through and go on and play in ultimately the NBA or in high leagues overseas. But just playing against guys like Malachi Flynn and KJ Fegan and Sam Merrill, just those great guards, being able to battle against them as a true freshman. You learn different tricks of the trade. You learn how they communicate with their teammates and why ultimately they're so successful. So just taking bits and pieces from those phenomenal players has definitely helped me with my leadership and also just continuing to improve as a player going into my second year.
Thank you, Jeff. Next up, John Tito from Hoops HD.
Good afternoon, Isaiah. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Cool. Just wanted to know, when you lose a guy of Niko, both his impact, his size, his everything, I was curious. Obviously, you guys couldn't play more different positions on the court, but how is it going to affect your own game, either on offense or defense or some other way?
Well, Niko is definitely a unique talent. Definitely one of my favorite teammates that I've ever played with in my time playing basketball, but we're going to miss him for sure. He brought some things to the table that's just hard to replace, but I'm also very confident in what we're bringing in this year with Deshaun Thomas and James Morris. They also just bring a different skill set that maybe Niko didn't necessarily bring to our team, just as far as like perimeter threats and just different actions that we can do. But it's going to be hard to replace Niko and everything that he did as far as rebounding and inside presence that was physical and dominant. But I also like where we're headed to with our young guys.
Our final question for Isaiah Stevens will be a follow-up question from Kevin Lyle of the Fort Collins, Coloradoan.
Hey, as talking about some of the assist numbers and stuff, Michael Morris, obviously one of the best assist guys in CSU history, has been pretty big, cheerleader on Twitter and everything. I was just wondering, have you ever actually met him or had a chance to talk with him, or just what does it mean seeing a guy like him, kind of supporting you and the program still?
So I personally haven't met him myself, but we have kind of interacted a little bit on Twitter, and also me and some of my coaches have definitely talked about getting me connected with him and have an opportunity to just sit down and chat with him. I definitely know he's one of the CSU greats that his name has definitely been remembered around this city for quite some time. And, I just hope that I'm able to hopefully have my name stick around like his.
Well, that's going to do it for our Q&A session with Isaiah Stevens. Isaiah, I appreciate you making time for us this morning. Good luck to you and the Rams this season.
Thank you for having me.